What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the same. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Hoyes.
Dr. Jeremy Hoyes here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Devon Bate of SEO Brothers.co. And Devon, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. This is going to be a great story because what's fascinating about Devon, I think is relatable, is both him and his brother had full-time jobs, and they started this on the side and grew it so that they could be their full-time thing. I think I can relate to that. Many people I know in my universe can relate to that too. So we'll talk about the journey. And the journey of white label is pretty interesting too, as well. But check out the other episodes. I did a few episodes with Jason Swank. Jason Swank grew his agency to over 8 figures and then sold it. And then I did another episode about what he's doing more currently, where he's been buying up agencies, and he has an agency group that he supports to help grow agency owners. So check those out. Todd Taskey is also another good one, especially in the agency series. He basically pairs agencies with private equity and helps sell agencies. And so he has the Second Bite podcast. Sometimes these agencies make more on the second bite than they do on the first, because the private equity sells again, and they make more with the rolled in percentage. So it's interesting how he thinks about valuations and selling companies and things like that. And I also did one with John Warlow. Speaking of selling companies, he wrote Built to Sell. He's got the Built to Sell podcast. Check that one out as well. Really good. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships and partnerships. And how do we do that? We actually help a company run their podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the full strategy, the accountability, and the full execution to make it easy. Devon, we call ourselves the magic elves that work in the background to make it look easy for the host and for the company, so they can just run their business, develop relationships, and that's what they can focus in on. Much like Devon behind the scenes is basically helping fuel people's SEO for their companies and with their clients. So the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships, and I've found no better way over the past decade to profile the people in companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you have thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com. We have a lot of free resources, and you can email us at support@rise25.com. And I'm excited to introduce Devon Bate. He's the co-founder of SEO Brothers with his brother, Adam. They're fully remote. It's funny, even back when it wasn't normal, they were fully remote. And actually, when I was looking back at, I think it was a video, I don't know what it was, 5 years ago or something like that, you had all the team members on talking about where they were fully remote. Now, after COVID especially, that's a little bit more normal, but you've been doing this for many years now. SEO Brothers specializes in white label SEO. They've helped over 100 agencies, all sizes, start, grow, and scale their SEO offering. And prior to SEO Brothers, Devon worked in finance and real estate consulting, and we'll dig into that a little bit. But Devon, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I want you to take me back. We'll talk about, SEO Brothers, and people can check it out at SEOBrothers.co and what you do there. But take me back. You and your brother, you're working full-time jobs, and you decide to have a contest between the two of you.
Yeah. So this would have been back in 2016, I believe. I can take it back slightly 1 year further. We started in 2015. Adam's actually, he's 7 years older than I am. So he had already sold a web development company, was branching out on his own, convinced me to start this agency together. SEO was what he was really enjoying. He was going to teach me. Let's dive in. He took a full-time job 2 weeks later after I quit my job. I tried to run it a little bit solo. We can dive more into that as well if you'd like. But after about a year, came to realize, maybe this should have started on the side instead of diving right in. Didn't quite have the savings in order to carry cost of living there. So I took a job in SEO, got really familiar, multi-location. And then, because it was on the side, we decided, let's start a new brand. At the time, it was an agency in Latin. No one could ever pronounce it. It wasn't great. So we started SEO Brothers. We were going to do this together. It started as sort of a case study. We were just writing about SEO. He was at an agency, so he couldn't really compete anymore. But we decided to have a competition. And at the time, I believe his was Vegan Life. He was recently vegan, and mine was Wine Life. I had recently started taking a few of the WSET courses, learning a fair bit more about wine. Certainly a different lifestyle, but it was, how can we each rank our sites? How can we monetize it? Is it subscription box style? Unfortunately, or fortunately, the exposure from our own SEO and SEO Brothers started picking up. I was able to pick up some clients on the side. Didn't really have time to bring that to fruition. We have the domains. I think we just finally stopped paying for them this past year, 6 years later. We've got way too many domains we were paying for. So it was time to let that one go. But I think it would have been really neat, but it was we don't really have clients. How can we prove ourselves? How can we show, if we're going to be SEO consultants, white label SEO, how can we show, that we're capable, show off our skills before we get clients? But things started picking up before we got there. So probably for the best, I guess.
Yeah. So you were, showcasing what you were doing, and you kind of publicly announced it. What did you learn at that time? Because, ranking and monetizing, and it's a lot different, right? What you were doing, like a vegan life and wine life. It's a lot harder to monetize something like that than like an actual business that can bring in clients and monetize, right? So that's very difficult to do. But what did you learn about ranking and monetizing at that time?
Well, at that time we didn't really get to the monetizing phase. So the learnings from that, unfortunately, weren't there. But from a ranking perspective, if we're getting into a little bit of the weeds of SEO, really having the opportunity to think through what the end game of the website was going to be, what is the structure, really think through the architecture there, mapping it out. Okay, I'm going to want someone to eventually search for this. That'll be sort of this silo of content. Taking the actual time to map it out, whiteboard, pen and paper, that kind of thing, mind map, before even starting. That was critical. It's a lot harder to kind of break apart your website, move your content. You can do it, but it's much cleaner if you can set it up right the first time. And good siloed content. So I think there's an image I used to use anytime I would do a presentation. It was kind of, you look at a jar of Skittles with all the different colors in it versus 5 different jars, each with their own color. It's so much more appealing to the eyes. But it really paints that picture of like good website siloing, put the content where it should be, a parent page, sub page, internal links, that kind of thing. So just not having endless, say, blogs being published without the actual intent behind what kind of content is this. A big difference back then, I guess, than now, though, is once you had decent enough content, link building was while it's still a very big play today, back then you could almost outlink bad content with powerful enough links, relevant enough links. Whereas, now I think the change over time is content is so pivotal. Google has gotten so much better at, reading it, digesting it, figuring it out. Thin, bad content, unless you don't have any competition in the space, that's just not the way it is anymore.
What's some mistakes you see people make? Because even on, you have, again, help a lot of agencies. So you have a little bit broader perspective than just maybe an agency that's serving one niche. You kind of see it across a bunch of different niches. What are some mistakes people are making? Because probably people listening here have companies and they're wondering, what should I be doing or what should I not be doing?
Yeah, I mean, from at least, the mistakes that we see agencies make, say, with clients, it's really expectation setting out of the gate is probably the biggest mistake, especially if you're going to work with a white label provider like us. And if we aren't aligned on what you sold your client, and then you come and buy the solution from us, and there isn't that collaboration on, are they actually expecting what we're providing as it comes through you? So I think that's a big one. Just aligning on, do they understand what SEO is, long-term strategy, and are they, like, what is their priority? Is it phone calls and booked appointments? If it's a dentist, do they just want butts and seats? Or, sometimes we've worked with clients, mostly out west, back sort of oil and gas industry. A lot of it was just, I see my competitor ranking for this. I want to be ahead of them. I don't care if their search volume. I'm willing to pay to beat them. And so that's a very different strategy, but it aligned with what the client wanted. And if that's, for some reason, if that's what he wanted to pay for, that we can deliver on that. So just being crystal clear before you sell your client, again, especially if you're working with even an internal team, to make sure we're all aligned that this is what we're actually going to deliver.
That's a good point with the expectations, especially with SEO, right? How do you recommend, because you're coaching your clients too and educating them on how to best go back and sell this sometimes, right? What do you tell them? Because to say, hey, this is a long-term strategy. This could take whatever, 6 months, a year, depending on the term that people are trying to rank for. But I'm sure they're getting from their clients, well, how quickly are we going to see results? How do you tell them to navigate this setting expectation conversation?
Yeah, well, and that's where it gets a little messy. I need to have a good relationship with our agency partner to understand what their in-house capabilities are, to make sure what I'm coaching aligns. But like, really, in terms of how we help them, say, sell SEO, really, the term investment, I feel like, gets thrown around a lot. Paid ads, it's like a faucet. You can turn it on, pay for that click, you get that lead. Whereas you're actually investing in your website. You're adding content to your website. You're cleaning up the structure of your website. You're getting links and building domain authority for your website. So it very much is a longer term strategy, like an investment. Likewise, ideally, over long term, you see those returns in, say, an investment portfolio, but you'll also see some drops along the way, right? The idea is to be trending upward, but there will be peaks and valleys as we get there. So setting that up ahead of time, that this isn't a linear, I want month over month over month over month growth. That's a big one. And another one, I guess, with SEO is that we're also not demand generating in this. So if you're in a market and they're just, especially if you're locally constrained and you're in rural Newfoundland in Canada and there's 2,000 people and you're a dentist, then if you're number one, even if you had 5 sites and you were number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's only so many people looking for a dent. We can't create demand. So we've had, for some reason, and that's a little bit more obvious, but there are certain circumstances where clients just forever expect growth, as if more people are all of a sudden going to be searching for them. So it's more about capturing that demand, is another big part of it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you can't create demand. But
yeah.
I like the metaphor of the investment portfolio. That's a good one, because I can see how that follows. Yeah, we're investing, but also it's not going to just keep growing. Like the stock market could drop and then, come back up. It's a long-term investment. What are some of the biggest objections that you or your partners get, and then how do you recommend handling them?
I think, price in our industry is probably the biggest pushback. Hey, I can go to Fiverr and get this for $49. Why do I need to spend X amount of money? And a big part for us, it's customer service that sets that apart. But really, the agency, like supporting the agency in building what their value proposition is. So, for us, we are the service providers. We're doing the SEO, but what sets them apart versus another agency we work with where we do the SEO to try and help them add their value to the relationship. Some clients they're purely price driven. And a lot of the times we've seen they say, no, thank you. And a year later, they come back and I didn't get anything from it. Maybe I'm ready to take this a bit more seriously. But the collaboration and the trying to understand, a business's priorities and objectives versus just, I'd like to buy content, links, that kind of thing as well. So I'd say, the why are you more expensive is probably the biggest pushback agencies will get.
Are there any other ways that you recommend your partners explain that or go about that of handling the price objection? What else have you seen work?
Yeah, it depends on their offering. So a lot of our agencies handle they're almost more, they kind of weasel their way into like business consulting, marketing consulting, set them up to really understand the business. Whereas some of the, low cost providers, it's deliverable, right? I spend this much and I'll give you X, Y, and Z, no promises, no commitment. I'm just going to give you the work. So helping them, demonstrate to their client that they're the ones leading the strategy, like getting to know their business, pulling that information out of them and making sure we're doing the right things. And if it doesn't work, we have strategies to pivot and adjust as needed versus, what now? Where do I go from here? So it's very much relationship driven, I would say at that point, with a lot of our agencies.
So make sure that there's a specific strategy, make sure that you demonstrate the value and then you're willing to pivot if that is not working.
Yeah.
Right.
And
go ahead.
And really, with our, partners and clients on price, and I think, you hear this maybe in real estate, lots of other industries, there's like the triangle of budget, results, and timeline. And so it's, if you want a lower budget and you still expect results in a year, then like the results aren't going to be as good, right? Like each one impacts the other. So it's, you pay $49 and if you expect results in 10 years, like they still might not be very good because your competitors might outspend you in general, but one needs to give for the other. So that's what we try and do it as well. So sometimes, we'll get pushback. Hey, this was the client might have quoted, it was $1,500 a month plan. Hey, like, can we do it for $1,000? It's like, okay, well, this was a 12-month plan. Are you prepared to do it over 18 months? Same sort of outcome, but it'll help your cash flow, but you're basically spending the same amount of money at the end of it. So it's, how can we know the pieces that we need to do. You said these are the priorities. You said, that's going to need this content, these links, your technical SEO maybe, needs a bit of a cleanup. How aggressive do you want to be in rolling some of this out? So it's almost more like financing a project over a longer period is also another way to still deliver the same value, but just bring it out a little bit longer.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what you said in the beginning, which is it's all about, setting the expectations, because that's really expectations. Yeah. It's really, well, if you want to spend this, here's what you should expect to get.
Yeah.
Right. What's another objection that's a common objection that you see? So price is one. What's another?
Just isn't SEO dead? I guess it'd be a pretty common one that I think we've heard for, forever. I feel like any big update that comes out, someone's website collapses and they've given up on the whole idea of investing in SEO. And really, the way we position it is that it's harder to spam. There's no mass link building from foreign countries that you can dump at your website with your content, buried in white space like that. When that disappeared, there was a whole group of people that then didn't know how to serve it. So it's more just the strategies are changing, but really it's what search engines have always wanted. They've just gotten better at doing it. So if you take the strategy of let's make you an authority in your space, let's build out good content, like your point of view, your perspective, let's get links from other websites. And it's just harder to do, which means it's all that more important to work with a reputable agency or white label provider than it is to just buy from wherever and hope for the best.
Yeah. The reason I this is interesting is like this applies to all industries. Whoever's listening to this, whatever company it is, I'm sure they're going to get some variation of this. Price is blank dead, whatever they're doing. Like it could be a web developer. Like, wait, do I really need this fancy website? Isn't this point, whatever it is?
Yeah,
so
I can just build it on links myself.
And like you, right. So these objections are pretty universal, and like you said, so that's a good way of handling it. It's harder to game the system now. So the people who do it are going to have an advantage, right? And actually invest in it. What's another, so we have price, isn't SEO dead? What's another common objection that you or your partners get?
I don't know if it's necessarily an objection, but something some clients push for is almost like a guarantee of results that, we never advise to do that. I know I've worked with companies that say, like, if we don't get you, to X, Y, or Z by a certain date, you have your money back. And maybe there's a place for that. That's certainly not what we advise, our agency partners to do. And it's a balance, but it is marketing. We're not, as someone, I think their argument to me is when I take my car into the mechanic, I don't want to pay him. And he'd be like, I might be able to fix your car. Like, come back later and we'll find out. Right. Which is a fair point, but, different industry, different expectations there. So it really, at the end of the day, we also shouldn't be in business if we aren't confident in our work. So it is based on the information we know now, we can expect an outcome by, basic 12 months, 18 months, 6 months, depending on what their actual budget is of this. But no, never a guarantee, because you never know what new competitor that comes in with some venture-backed funding and all of a sudden got really aggressive with their SEO strategy. So you can't predict what other parties are going to do. And that's SEO, right? That if someone else all of a sudden comes in, then our work, that given that what we knew at the time might have been enough, but now that there are more people involved, the strategy is changing. So really we always start, we tell our clients, we'll just start with a discovery audit, right? We'll show you that we're capable of, finding things on your website, making some recommendations. Some even recently have started with maybe a 3-month project commitment to kind of get over that fear of like, am I just going to pay for this forever? Like, is this going to be a line item that never goes away? And then when you see results and you're happy with it, we can go from there. So that would probably be.
It's an interesting conversation, Devon, because, really what the client's asking is they just want to diminish their risk, right? Yeah. And so how are ways you've seen companies do a little bit of a risk reversal, not necessarily a guarantee, but a risk reversal. And I see on one hand, if a company's talking about the value they provide, like you said, the strategy is to get you calls or appointments. Then the expectation is, okay, like our goal is to get you calls or appointments, as opposed to selling the features, which is also not a great way of selling. Like, oh, we'll do X number of articles, we'll do X number of link, you can guarantee those things, but then that's still not talking about the outcome is what the person cares about. So how do you navigate selling the benefits and the features there?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely in SEO, you do need both because, if there is a down month, especially busy business owners, they have a website, you're doing stuff on it. Most of them don't even read the content. Like they don't really know. So if results are down, they need some sort of like, have you been doing any work? Like I need proof you are doing something, right? That's always, so, we have deliverables that are for our partner that they can share with the client. We try to be as transparent as possible because there is that, what are you even doing? So that like the features, while not necessarily great for the sale, are critical to just show, because there are there are companies out there that, sign people up for an SEO program. Maybe they optimize a couple page titles in Yoast, and then it's just a monthly fee and they're not really delivering any ongoing value. So that piece is still very important. But from the benefit side, we try to relate it to what their industry is. So using that, dentist as an example, most dentists will know what is the average even annual value of a new patient. Maybe it's $600 for a patient. And how many calls, and really, I guess, looking at, search volume in their market. So if there are 100 people searching a month and, if we can get you to position 1, maybe that's 30% of those 100 people will visit your website. Ideally, it's going to be much better if they're a business that has an existing website, has, maybe Google Analytics or some sort of tracking already, so that we can look at, you seem to be converting at this percentage. There is this opportunity in search volume. We're confident we can get you here by 12 months, which means this many more calls, which then means this many more patients and this much more money. And that's a positive ROI for you. So it can get a little cumbersome because unfortunately there are a lot of businesses that don't have that information, especially smaller local businesses. They don't always have a great way of tracking that. And some of our agencies have actually almost become more operational consultants as they move further. Like, okay, you say it's not working. We see conversions. Let's set up call tracking. Okay, now it's almost, I'm listening to the phone. You're actually, you never answer it on time, or so-and-so's rude. And then it's like, we can't close the business for you. And then they get into offering some of that. So some of that can happen certainly along the way as well. We obviously stay out of that side. That's how the agency sees they can start providing more value, working with at least some of the smaller local businesses.
There's a lot of pieces. There's a lot of moving pieces with this. And it's like, even like you said, let's say you do exactly what you say and you get people hitting to the page and they call and then no one answers the phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So like everything that everyone's worked for at that point falls to the wayside.
Yeah.
So from what you're saying, it sounds like communication, education of the clients are key. The expectations are key. Communication, education are key, because if you're communicating, like you said, let's say the dentist gets an implant client, like after month 6, that could pay for you for 3 years. Yeah. But the client's sometimes thinking, what have you done for me lately? Right. And so the next month, nothing, the next month, nothing. But if the partner or you educate the client, be like, this paid for us for 3 years, then they're still probably thinking, what have you done for me lately? But it helps a little bit on that education and communication standpoint.
It does. And bigger businesses we've worked with seemed like I mentioned, a while ago, sort of Western Canada energy sector, they understood, like, I'll pay for this for 2 years. If I get one client out of it, that pays for 5 more years of this. So some of them certainly do. But it's more being able to show this actually came from our work. I guess at the end of the day, that's the important part. Not just, I think they just would have called anyway. I thought this was a referral or something like that.
That kind of goes into, so setting expectations, communication, education. Another one that it seems that you just mentioned is choosing the right clients, right? Like a client that actually has the right expectations to start with. Talk about that for a second. Who's ideal clients for you, or who's not? Who have you found they don't come in with realistic expectations? They, want it done yesterday, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so our clients, if that's being the agencies that we work with, working with niched agencies is certainly the best client for us. It means there's intention, there's, a good sales process that's consistent. They're building a reputation in their industry, and you see more of that adding services to help show the success. I mentioned like call tracking and dentists. We work with a big partner in the US that, because they do dentists, they always set up the scheduling software, the call tracking software, so they can just get really good at understanding their market. And so we can plug in the SEO piece, and it's much easier for them to quickly show that success versus trying to, build that all from scratch. I would say, that would be, that's our ideal partner. And so we always recommend for all of our agencies to, if they can, and if they're open to it, to niche into something that makes sense for them. It just makes it a lot easier, especially in the white label. We can really work on a consistent solution. We can get our costs down. Hey, we've noticed, doing this, that, it is kind of almost then a built for them productized service. Most of the time when we do these, it works consistently. And so you can sell it without getting a proposal every time from us. You know what results to expect, and we can just scale together like that.
I'm curious, Devon, if there's cases where that makes sense, right? Specializing, niching, and this is a constant conversation I'm sure I've heard a lot of agencies have internally. But then sometimes they're fearful, like, well, we're neglecting this other business, right? If we fully go all in on, if you're listening to the audio, you can see we are looking at the video. We are looking at SEObrothers.co and the industries. Like, you know what? Cardiology, right? Like 30% of their clients are cardiology, whatever. And the 70% is not. They're worried. I'm sure you've heard this a million times. They're worried, well, are we going to neglect this? Have you found cases where you're working through this process? Because I'm sure with your onboarding, and we'll talk about your client onboarding a little bit, that you almost have to do a discovery on where to focus. Have you done discoveries where an agency actually kind of discovered through your discovery with them that they should be niching into a specific industry?
A little bit, especially in the early years, and more so if they've also got other services. So a big type of partner we work with, they generally do, say, paid ads in-house, and then outsource the SEO. And so, any industry that maybe we've seen come through where it's very complementary. There was one that was in the HVAC space where paid ads were excellent for all of the emergency keywords. And then we were really good for the researching big major furnace purchase, that kind of thing in tandem. So it comes down a little bit to what they offer. But we can see it when we used to look at, our top 10 partners by revenue, 9 out of 10 of them were niched. And it was a no-brainer that they were just able to build processes and scale accordingly. And you definitely get that scares me. And in the early stages, maybe there is more trying, and you don't have to decide necessarily right away, until you find, what you're really good at. But, we do get that pushback a lot.
Yeah, no, but there's a lot of articles. So if this happens to be in your specific space, you can check out their industries page. You can see that, I guess they eat their own dog food because they have a different article for each of these niches, right? So if you are a med spa, if you are here's to create a perfect franchise SEO solution, We have cosmetic surgeons. We have on and on and on. Auto repair shops. Talk about the client experience. I know that's something you've focused on throughout the years and even now. What have you found is the best walk through your onboarding and client experience?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking for the best, always looking to get better, right? And it's changed a lot over the years. I would say just the client experience in general is what has set us apart and helped us see our success. Because especially in the white label, and I might have mentioned this earlier, there can be a lot of resellers where an agency just goes and I need 10 pieces of content and I need 5 links, and it's kind of just self-managed that way. Whereas we really do try to be a partner for the agencies that we work with. And we also want to make sure we aren't wasting each other's time before we come in and offer a lot of our complimentary support on top if it's not going to actually work out. So, to start things off, we do a demo with our sales team. Good fit. Do we like each other? Do the culture deck? Do things align? This is what we do. This is how you would work with us. Here's our portal, that kind of thing. If they want to move on to the next stage, usually they've come to us because there is a current need. So they might submit a discovery audit. We'd walk them through what it would be like for them to onboard their first campaign, I guess, in that process as well. So they can get a sense of that flow, emails, delivery, documents, what do things look like with something a little bit more relevant than just samples. And from there, we look at signing a master service agreement. So we look to work together for a year. Obviously, they can terminate if the relationship doesn't work out, but we like that soft commitment because sometimes it can be like, I really like you guys. I'll see you when I have a paying client. So it's just another way to get that engagement from them. And from there, we do a big, meet the team call. So the director of client experience, who's going to be your project manager, who's going to be your account manager, get familiar with some of the faces. We are fully remote. So it's going to be a Zoom or Google Meet call. We'll then introduce each other, really just more of relationship building before we get into client work. After that, we're in the process of developing like a new client or a new partner package. So it comes with all of the things that they've probably been demoed already. But obviously you quickly forget, what you've seen in a presentation. So nicely packaging anything that's relevant to them. Hey, when you onboard a client, make sure you get Google Analytics, if it's local, Google Business, and some of that housekeeping as well. And that's really the onboarding a partner. And then obviously there's the additional layer of onboarding their campaigns as they come in as well.
Talk about that for a second. So you've kind of walked them through, educated them, and now you need to. They're like, yeah, let's go, let's do it, Devon. What happens next? Yeah, and it depends on what they're coming to us with. Some have a book of business that they want to bring over because they're not happy with their last provider. That's usually more of a custom, like, hey, this was my budget. This is what we were doing. How can we make this fit? And, that's kind of a separate conversation to onboard an existing book. But, if they were coming fresh or just slowly bringing on new clients, we always ask them to submit a discovery or discovery and proposal, depending on how early in the sales stage they are in. And that involves, we look at their business priorities, if they have a sense of that already. If it's more of a cold discovery, then, we'll just look at some of the keywords that they already rank for, what positions they're in, who are they up against in terms of competition, what does their technical structure look like, how would we approach this campaign? And then we typically would provide a couple of options. So, maybe it's if you're a wellness clinic, you've got lots of different services. You've got chiro, you've got massage, you've got physiotherapy, right? If you want to focus on, say, all 5 of your core services, that means, we at least need 5 to 10 pieces of content per month. We need, that many more links. It's going to be this budget to
to get you these results in, say, a year. Or, if you don't want to spend that much, maybe you just want to focus on one or two of your most profitable. So let's focus on chiro and massage. So it's going to be less content, fewer links. That'll be a smaller budget to get those services there. So it's trying to give a few different options for pricing, but still being about delivering that value. It's just, how much do they have, I guess, on their website? How many things do they do as well? So that's sorry, go ahead.
That's helpful. Yeah, Devon. And again, I'm on the SEObrothers.co site, and I'm on the packages page. So you can check out what they have going on here. But I'm curious on pricing. How do you, and this is current in time we're looking at, this could change. Yeah. They could raise their prices. So if you watch this 5 years from now, don't ask Devon, why can you give me that old pricing? But talk about pricing and how you came up with pricing, because you've taken account, okay, I'm white label, so my clients have to go and sell this. So you have to strike a balance there.
We do. We're in the white label space, you're at a slight disadvantage of not really being able to price at value, right? Value-based pricing, when someone else then has to mark it up, is much harder to do. So we do a lot more cost-based pricing, which is unfortunate, but it's the reality of the industry. And we actually just overhauled our pricing structure a little bit to make our managed campaign more of a managed campaign. And so what I mean by that is the way our ongoing campaigns work, unless you're we've got a, partner with 90 locations and it's a scalable, very specific, like I mentioned before, we build custom solutions. If you're an agency that's hyper niched and you want to grow that way, for, smaller to medium-sized agencies, our managed campaign, it's really a $500 pay to play fee, base fee, with $100 of, we almost say it like SEO spend. So for instance, the $500 that gets you your reporting, that gets you your monthly, agency analytics crawl, search console check, a base amount of link building, project management time, account management time, that kind of thing. So just to run the campaign, and then it scales up, but it starts with $100. And this is sort of how we base our recommendations. So, if we feel you have lots of services, you've voiced you want to be aggressive, then we price in, it's basically a fixed, I'll just use an example, maybe say $50 per piece of content. So if we feel you need 4 pieces of content, then that's going to be an extra $200 of budget that your SEO strategist will manage over time. So the way we look at it is it's not necessarily a fixed scope. It's, say, a range of 2 to 6 pieces of content and maybe 2 to 8 links, but based on a quarterly basis, what we feel is the next, in your best interest, the next best thing for your website this quarter. Maybe we need more content early on and fewer links while we build out more of a site structure for you. And then as we progress into future quarters, maybe that mix changes a little bit as well. Obviously, Google Business and local plays into that, but it's kind of like a $500 for a strategist to manage your SEO spend. And that scales up based on how many pieces or components, we call them, of SEO we think your website needs in that discovery process. And then self-managed is basically, you don't get the strategist overseeing it. They're usually agencies with in-house SEO already that are more of the, it's pretty low competition. They could just use some link building, some technical cleanup. I know what I'm doing. You get your reports, but you don't get the, why isn't this performing? What's happening here? You kind of have to know what you're ordering. That we package as a campaign instead of necessarily, a la carte content links, that kind of thing. But if they say, why isn't this performing? We'll move, you don't have enough budget. Let's move to a managed campaign and we can lead the strategy there.
Yeah. No, thanks for walking through that. And then I'm sure you get all over the place, but do you have a recommendation on how much should your clients sell things for? right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking I can kind of compare it to, retail, right? If someone's in a grocery store, I don't know the actual metrics, but let's say they're selling to the grocery store for, $3, and the grocery store is going to sell it for $6. They want 100% markup or whatever it is. So what do you recommend as far as pricing goes for your clients?
We generally recommend a 100% markup. There are certain industries that maybe you can't get away with that. There are some industries where the value is just outrageous and they're 5 times as much. But it also depends on the value that they're showing up with as well. So like I mentioned, the dental example, if the call tracking and patient booking and all of that kind of gets bundled into it, the value, it's probably going to actually get marked up a fair bit more because it all seems even more valuable. But we always shoot for 50% is the cost. And so the early days, and I see a picture of Jeff and Matt there from Rocket Barn, that was it. It was, you go out and every quote I'm going to give you is 50%, cost of retail pricing. So that is, that has carried forward. That is what we try to encourage our agency partners to sell for. Talk
about Rocket Barn.
Great company. It's actually Matt recently bought out Jeff, so it's just Matt now. But they found us when I was living in Waterloo, Ontario, in Canada about 6 years ago. We ranked for a Waterloo SEO term, so our own organic helped us get found by these two. They've gone through a lot of iterations themselves. They always knew that they were going to be in the sort of niched dealer network space. So some of the initial projects we worked with were basically co-op funded HVAC. So American Standard's got a marketing budget. So, local reps can run marketing campaigns at 20% the actual cost. The rest is co-op funded. And so that was kind of how we got in with them. And really it was the service layered on top. And we didn't have too many clients at the time. So I had more time, I had no children yet. I was out there hustling with these guys in the early days to try and help them sell. And we just started growing the book of business with them. So, this is really where the client experience side that I see paid off for us in the early days. And now they specialize in franchise SEO. So we support building out those, scalable solutions that they can sell, time and time again.
Devon, first of all, thank you. I have one last question. Before I ask it, I want to point people, check out SEObrothers.co to learn more episodes of the podcast. Last question is just mentors in your agency journey. And it could be, specific mentors, or it could be distant mentors, maybe a book or other resources that you like.
Yeah, two come to mind. Obviously, my brother Adam, he's got 7 years on me. He mentored me through all of the technical, the actual SEO side of things. My background, I studied finance, dabbled in real estate. So, the industry knowledge really came from him. I guess to take it back to, maybe a book. I haven't really recently read as many business/agency books. Built to Sell is a great one. But Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership and Leadership Strategy and Tactics, more on the leadership and personal development side. I've reread those many times. As we've grown a team, it was one thing to go out, be friendly, build relationships with clients, sell SEO, deliver work. But, all of a sudden you start growing and a team gets building. That skill was never really practiced. And so I turned to those two were, really great books that I've listened to a few times over.
Awesome. Everyone check out more episodes of the podcast, SEObrothers.co. Devon, thanks so much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like $100 grand.